Well, James Prince, Floyd Mayweather. You guys love to hear about that time he went and got his money back from Floyd and things of that nature. Right. Listen. This is what happened. I want to be clear on it with the whole world. Okay? I want the whole world to be clear on what I'm about to say. James Prince wanted to get into the boxing business because it was his first love. All right? He came in the game, he wanted to get with Mike Tyson. He wanted Mike Tyson or Roy Jones Jr. But Roy was doing his own thing, and Roy had his pretty much his plan set the way he go, and Roy set things up the way he wanted to do it. So after meeting with Mike Tyson and all these people, Shelly Finkel and everybody else that was there, and got a little nervous. Oh, here it is. I found it out all this time too. Yeah, my goodness. It's right there in my face. But like I was saying, they turned around and had one thing in play, then turned around and there was another thing in play. The Mike Tyson thing got shut down by Shelly Finkel. So before he left, they was like, there's an undefeated champ over there. He's looking for somebody to help him out with management. He want to talk to you. And Floyd had his Filthy Rich record label. And he wanted some help getting that started and all this stuff. You know, he knows James Prince from, you know, Rap-A-Lot, Ghetto Boys, and you know, that situation. So he decided that he'll take a look at it, and if he see there's something he could do there, then he could. And once he got in there, he realized that Floyd had a bad relationship going on with the HBO. Shocking, right? At this time, Seth Abrams and Lou DiBella were basically running HBO Sports as far as the boxing. Yes, this is before Lou started promoting. So what Lou would do, Lou would go all the way and really push to have Floyd fight these fights and give him what they think he deserves. Now, naturally, he had a $12 million deal on the table, and then it changed into I think a $20-something million deal over so many fights or whatever. But I think the deal they had at first was like 12. And they was like, so many fights and you're going to make $12 million. Now, I forgot how many fights it was, but it was a lot of fights. And Floyd said no to the deal. And he didn't think the deal was fair. Because mainly he's seen that Prince Nazim was getting a lot of money at the time. The Prince was getting all of this money, and he's a featherweight. And Floyd's like, wait a minute. And they was like, look, Prince Nazim's got a crowd. He got an audience. He got people coming to support him. And he's putting on excitement and all this stuff. So Floyd modeled himself after Prince Nazim. After watching Prince, the ring entrances, you know, the flamboyance. And Floyd's like, look, because he was supposed to fight Nazim. And they were working on bringing that together. But HBO wanted them to fight Diego Corrales. Because Diego was the guy that they had been building on. That was the guy they said, this is the monster at 130. He's a real huge 130. He beat Robert Garcia when Robert was undefeated. He won the belt for him. And he's just too big for Robert Garcia. He's too big for everybody at 130. He had the frame of a welterweight, but he was fighting at 130. And they were like, Floyd knew that this was the setup HBO wanted them to do. They wanted to put him in a situation with a guy that was too big for him to fight. And he knew Diego was that guy they wanted him to lose to. So Floyd didn't want to jump into the trap and take the fight. So they didn't want anything to do with him. So when he came back after a year and a half, he's fighting with his father and Jeff. And some money came up missing with Senior when he went away to jail. And when he come out of jail, you know, and now he's ready to take over and run everything again. It was a whole big, you know, struggle. Because Floyd at that time never could stand up for himself and deal with his father on this level. So he would always back down, and his dad would just come in and intimidate stuff. And then when he left, he was like, look, there was $20,000 in the bank. It was supposed to be doing this and that. Next thing you know, money come up missing. And Jeff like, do you think I would lose this kind of money? You know what I'm saying? Like, Jeff's like, do you think I would steal anything from anybody? So Jeff was like, forget that. So Jeff was good. So now that Jeff was good and everybody was straight, you know, everybody had to get their situation in hand and in tow. And all this stuff, because Jeff was managing Floyd at the time. And Floyd was ready to move on from having Jeff manage him. Leonard Ellerbe just came into the picture because Leonard Ellerbe was brought in as a strength and conditioning coach. He didn't even have a place to stay. He was living at Jeff Mayweather's house, sleeping on Jeff's couch. So he wasn't even a manager or nothing at the time. He was just a fitness instructor. He used to wear jogging suits, and he had, you know, impressed Floyd with this physical conditioning training, telling him how he can do one exercise to complement multiple different things. So instead of spending all this extra time doing one thing and then going to another, then another, then another, you could do a couple of exercises that will cover a lot of those bases that you're doing, and you'll get better results. So L was very good with the conditioning factors. Now, when it gets into the actual mental perspective of this whole thing with James Prince, he's seeing this as a very toxic situation with Senior, them, and so he tells Floyd, like, look, I'm managing your career, so it's up to you what you want to do. I can see where I can make it better. I can come in, I'll talk to HBO and everything else. So they talked to Bob Arum. Bob Arum did not like the fact that he was going with another manager instead of Mayweather Sr. Mayweather Sr. and Bob Arum had a good rapport because he knew that Mayweather Sr. is going for what I'm saying, and Floyd needs to take this deal. And that's what Bob Arum is trying to get Floyd Sr. to go, because there's going to be something in it for Big Floyd, of course, if he gets this deal done. And that's why he's pushing. So the narratives change over and over again. And sure enough, we bring it to the table, and you have a situation where there's a round table meeting, and Floyd basically tells his father that, you know, that James Prince is going to be handling things. So Floyd is in there. They've already got a deal in place where they're going to be fighting. Their first fight is against on the KO Nations, not really on HBO. And this was like an audition thing for Floyd against the Puppet Master, Emmanuel Burton, which is now, he changed his name to Emmanuel Augustus. So they brought him on, and this was the battle to see who was going to get to fight, you know, and move on. But Lou DiBella made this to teach Floyd a lesson. He knew that they didn't know anything about Augustus or Emmanuel Burton at the time, so he knew that this guy is tough as nails, and his record don't indicate anything about how he fights. And it ended up being one of the toughest fights in Floyd's career. And he wanted to do this to teach Floyd a lesson, to put him in a fight. So after this tough fight, they took a 1-fight deal. That fight was like $250,000. After this deal was done, and put in place, back to that roundtable meeting, James Prince already told you guys, because you guys kept hitting me up on it, because you guys seen it on Instagram. So I said, well, let me go ahead and explain the whole thing. Floyd Mayweather Sr. didn't like the fact that he's telling him, Floyd's going to be the one to do this, and he wants to know the deal. He's like, I can't disclose no information unless Floyd chooses me to tell you the deal. And Floyd was like, Floyd, you want me to tell your fight? Hell no. So Floyd was like, nope, it ain't his business. So we ain't disclosing nothing. So Big Floyd jumps up and comes around the table, and he's ready to fight. And he's like, James Prince, he gets in his face. He's like, look here, I can see you upset, but I'm going to let you know right now, I can't be taking no punches. And he looked at him, Mayweather Sr. did, and he went and, he went back and sat down, but he was real hot. Mayweather Sr. was ready to fight. And then Floyd was ready to fight. He jumped up, yeah, that's right. And he ready to fight his father, but it was a toxic situation. So James Prince ended up leaving at the time, and he's like, I'm going to just go to work. And what he did was come up with a way, because Floyd got on the phone with Lou DiBella. They cussed each other out. It didn't work out. And he was like, look, I don't like Floyd. That's not going to happen. Lou DiBella was like, Lou, how can we fix this? He was like, because he's like, look, we all know this number 12 is not a good number. Let's try to fit. He don't want Floyd to make a dime. So he's like, I'm not budging. So he told him, he was like, look, let's say Floyd do a couple of benchmarks. He hit those marks. He go up. And then Diego Corrales. That's what they want. It was, yep, Diego Corrales. That's it. So they was like, okay, fine. He did one fight, and he hit all those benchmarks, and he'll get a bump. So HBO come back with, we got the Diego Corrales fight for Floyd. Now, if he take this fight, that deal he talking about, that he wanted, that's $20 million, that'll double. That $12 million, that deal with HBO, all that'll double. So they're looking at it from a different perspective. Floyd is like, I don't want nothing to do with this fight, because he thinks it's a setup. So James Prince is trying to talk to him like, man, this is the time to get him, because HBO is trying to make all the money they can off Diego, because they don't know how his court case is going to go. This guy just got it, out of jail, and he's going on trial for beating his, putting his hands on his baby mom and his wife. So, we got to try to navigate this a little better. This might be the time to take him. Mentally, he's like, I will work out a game plan, which they did. And they started the harassment of talking about they going to do this for battered women around the world. And Diego Corrales, they going to offer his wife a seat there so she could watch the fight as Floyd go in and attack him. So Diego, it worked. Because at the Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis fight, them two got into it, and that's all the press was talking about. I mean, the David Tua fight. Because Lennox Lewis fought David Tua, and it was a bore. So after the fight, the press was like, this is just a boring thing to write about. And Diego Corrales camp and Floyd camp got into it, and that's all the press had something to write about. And at that time, HBO, when Floyd said, you know what, because James Prince tried to get Floyd to agree to fight Diego. He went home and he had a voicemail. He said, you know what? I hired you to manage my career. And if you think that taking on Diego Corrales and this is the time to do it, then let's do it. So Floyd took the fight. And when he took the fight and he trained for that fight, man, it was incredible. because HBO didn't want to get him a date, and they said they couldn't find one. Then they found one, and it was only 2 months left for Floyd to train for the fight. But Floyd's he's already in shape, so the fight was coming right up in 2 months. But what they didn't know is this crippling Diego. This is crippling him because he was way too big at this time. He had all the stress going on. He's around 160, and he's got to drop like 30 pounds in 2 months. They're like, man, Diego's every bit of 160. And so he's going right into a weight loss thing, basically, to get his weight down. And then he wanted to move to 35 anyway. He was already talking about possibly moving to 135 because he didn't think he was ever getting that fight with Floyd. So now when they got the fight made with Floyd and HBO's all aboard, he's basically running a weight loss camp. So he did it. He made the weight. They got in the ring, and he was just looked like a shot fighter. Floyd was always more technical, but Diego was just trying his best, and Floyd dropped him like 5 times during the fight, and it was just nothing. He was spent. There's nothing he could do. So everything's rolling with Floyd, and James Prince is his manager, and doing these things with these deals, and all of a sudden, James Prince goes to want to manage Diego Corrales. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. So Diego was locked up he went up serving jail time. Now he's getting ready to come out after 2 years of being served for domestic violence. James Prince talks to his girlfriend at the time, or wife, and she gets him to come visit Diego in jail. So he told Diego, look, I want to tell you it was nothing personal. We just did what we had to do to try to get Floyd the advantage. But I want to manage you. And Diego hated James Prince. He didn't want nothing to do with him. And then when he saw some of the gangsters that was like talking to their family members on the side, they look and they see who he talking to. And they was, yo, man, you know him? And the guy came over and was like, can I shake your hand, sir? He was like, yes, you can. And he was like, man, you got this guy coming to visit you? Do you know how lucky you are? And once Diego started seeing that, like, man, who are you? He signed a contract right then and there on the spot for James Prince to be his manager. And from that moment on, he got out of jail. They was trying to find fights and build Diego up because Top Rank dropped him. Because they said, oh, Diego ain't going to be nothing. We dropping him. So when he got out of jail, they dropped Diego Corrales. Because they just thought there's nothing else we could do for this kid. We don't know what kind of fighting skills he's got left. So the night he came back and beat Castillo, that was ended up being his last victory in the ring. It brought him back all the way full circle. Because he had been through so many wars and always came back, and he came back to win that fight. That was like his signature fight of all time. And unfortunately, he had a tragic end, but this didn't go over well with Floyd, the fact that these guys were managing each other. That Floyd didn't feel the trust when he seen James Prince was managing him, and he wanted out. And Al Heyman was going to run. I mean, not Al Heyman, but at this time, Leonard Ellerbe was going to be his manager. Because Leonard, went to business school too. So Leonard was going to handle his finances and things like that, and it would cost Floyd less money. But he still owed James Prince money. Like some high 6 figures. And when this was done, Floyd didn't want to pay the money or was blowing him off or whatever, and James Prince sent people to the Top Rank gym to go get the money. And some things ensued, and rumor has it that Leonard Ellerbe was incapacitated in some way. There was some blood some way. We won't go into that. But Floyd was on the phone saying, we need that money right now. We need it right now and delivered here immediately. And he was like, okay, tell them, will they accept a check? And he said, because he said, I don't know if I have that kind of cash just laying around. And he said, will you guys take a check? He said, no. It has to be cash. So they ended up pulling some strings. Bob pulled some strings. They got some money over there. And they ended up resolving the situation. And Floyd and j.prince had a talk on the phone. And they were able to negotiate a release where he was no longer the manager for Floyd Mayweather. So Leonard Ellerbe ended up handling the managerial duties at that time. And that was it. That's where the relationship went. It strained. They just went their separate ways. And j.prince ended up conducting his other business. He ended up, getting Andre Ward, working with him. But him and Floyd have always kept it cordial. They never had a problem besides that. And that was that. So I hope that answers your questions about the situation. They're very cool right now, as you should know. Al Heyman, they all know j.prince is and everything else. So that's that. Don't forget to click the link in the description box and leave a donation to your boy. And you can leave your email in a message there too. I'm out. Peace.